Reopening America. With more than half the country set to relax stay-at-home orders, how do we manage the health and economic risks of reopening? What does the new normal look like? What does the new normal even mean? Will companies have to stagger their workforce? What happens to collaborative workspaces? Can we even be profitable in a world regulated by social distancing? How do we take one step forward without taking two steps back? Elected leaders, economists across the globe, and Wall Street all agree that this pandemic has brought about the worst economy in our lifetimes, rivaling the Great Depression. Could that also mean opportunity? We'll seek insights and guidance from our panel of experts as we shift our focus this week on the impact of the office and mixed-use sector. Up first, our exclusive interview with business leaders Matt Cullen of Bedrock and Jonathan Holtzman of City Club Apartments. Later, we'll have expert insights and analysis from Dennis Bernard of Bernard Financial Group, Jared Friedman of Friedman Real Estate, and Andy Gutman of the Farbman Group. We're obviously leveraging Zoom technology and trying to provide an optimistic outlook and build an online community for that matter. So if you have a question for any of our powerhouse panelists, please add them to the chat box and I'll do my very best to incorporate them. It's Wednesday, May 6, 2020. I'm Derek Dickow. Welcome to Impact. Before we begin our program, for those of you that have had family or friends lost or impacted by COVID-19, our thoughts and prayers are with you. We've partnered with the Children's Foundation COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund and are trying to assist them in raising funds to support frontline and essential workers. There's a link on our homepage, and we encourage you to do what you can if you're in the position to. When COVID-19 crisis arrived, many in the Detroit business community looked to Bedrock and Quicken Loans to see how they'd react. Initially, Bedrock was quick to offer rent relief to small businesses and restaurants. Now that we're set to open very soon in our state, all eyes again are once again on Bedrock's leadership. With more than $5 billion invested in more than 100 properties and leasable commercial real estate within the Central Business District, what is the step-by-step approach for reopening Bedrock's offices? Our first guest this morning is one of America's most influential business leaders and the Chief Executive Office of Bedrock. Let's welcome Matt Cullen. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Derek.
Matt, before we start, we've all been so happy to see the progression of Dan Gilbert's health since the stroke about a year ago today. And so our thoughts and continued prayers are with Dan and Jennifer and the family. I'd like to start right away asking, where are we today with the Central Business District as it relates to Bedrock's portfolio?
Well, first off, thanks for the comments about Dan. He continues to get stronger and get more engaged all the time, so appreciate that. From a Bedrock standpoint, we're obviously keenly focused on the city of Detroit. When the thing first came out, we made decisions to, I think, get out there very early on to let our tenants know that we were going to be partners with them. And for our small businesses, we made the decision that for April, May, and even June that we weren't going to collect rents. And that we're going to be, their economic partner in that regard. Also work with them to connect them into other opportunities for small businesses, other governmental support, and finally work to help market them and to connect them still as they move to virtual or curbside and so on. So we started out with that, and I think we're continuing that kind of a relationship. We're continuing to work with them very closely to understand what's happening with them. I mean, from a Bedrock standpoint, we're a landlord, but we're also, because of Dan's leadership and his focus, I'd say we're a bit of a market maker in the city of Detroit. It's been something really important to us, and we want to continue to nurture that while still being sort of pragmatic from a business perspective. So I think a delicate balance is everybody's going through right now.
Yeah, certainly everyone across the state, across our country is going through similar. But driving down through the Central Business District right now, it's a ghost town. What are you doing operationally to prepare for the upcoming months through the summer when typically Campus Martius is just so inundated with thousands and thousands of people, events? So what are some of the challenges there, and what will you do as a company throughout those months?
Well, I mean, I think we're, reacting to what's happening. I don't think anybody knows exactly how this is going to play out or exactly when it's going to play out. The governor is taking leadership. Jerry Anderson and others from the Merck team are working to sort of balance the medical circumstance with the business circumstance. You're right. It's for those of us that have worked so hard on the city of Detroit coming back, for the vibrancy of the downtown, midtown coming back. It's tough to see it as quiet as it is right now. But I mean, we remain very bullish on it. I mean, I think as things start to open up again, which they are, we're getting back on site this week on Hudson's. We're getting back at the Book Tower. We're getting back at OCM. So I mean, the construction stuff is starting. Our expectation is that the retailers will start after that. So I think it's a balanced approach. I think it needs to be, but we're going to continue I think try and be creative, try and be thoughtful and strategic about nurturing the market at the same time that we're working through the health crisis that we're in the midst of.
Matt, what's your general sense about when our economy will open up in Michigan or should open up in Michigan? We're hearing that when it does, maybe the first phase will call in for about 20% of the workforce to come back. What are you seeing, being that you're involved in many leadership groups throughout the state from your position?
Well, I think it's not one size fits all, right? I mean, the work that's being done within the governor's task force defines the state into different work regions, different healthcare regions, and I think you're going to see a different approach in those different regions. You're going to see um, different focus on which businesses can come online first. I mean, construction is one of the first ones. The retail and some of the others are going to lag a little bit. And I think it's going to be a little bit iterative. I mean, I think you kind of open things up a little bit and see how they go. So a lot of smart people are involved in it. Tremendous amount of work has been done. I mean, Ray Scott at Lear and a number of others, but the amount of work that's been put into understanding what the workplace looks like as people come back. I mean, what steps should be taken at a manufacturing place? Our team and the team at Quicken Loans, as the office team members come back into play, how does that look? Do you bring them back all at once? Probably not. Do you bring them back, over a bit of time? You understand there's different ways that we might be working for a period of time. I mean, people have found, I think, in many instances that work from home can be quite productive. So there's a lot of work being done. And again, I don't think it will be everybody at once, and I don't think it will be even every geography in the state coming online the same way. I think it's going to be a bit more nuanced than that.
With more than 20,000 workers throughout the family of companies, how will you manage the reopening and health and economic risks at the same time? Will this be an edict from the federal government? Will it come from the state? Or does Bedrock have a plan in place for exactly how you start to roll these things out?
Well, I mean, certainly we'll take guidance from the governor and federal requirements. I mean, we will certainly do that at a minimum. But I think that our steps might go a bit beyond that. Jay Farner and the team at Quicken have been very thoughtful. I mean, we were one of the first to work from home. We're fortunate in that we are a technology company in many ways, and our technology team has done a tremendous job in allowing our team to work from home. We got a variety of different businesses, but all of our technology focused. So we will obviously comply with all of the governmental requirements, but we spent a lot of time and energy understanding um, what will look like. I mean, what is coming back to work look like from a physical standpoint? I mean, probably less density, probably different approaches to team meetings and things like that, and definitely it will come in increments. And we're going to work with some folks. I mean, we've had some critical workers that are in place throughout, but we're going to bring more in. Some might be coming in a couple of days a week. Others may be working from home for a period of time. So I think both from a technical standpoint, a lot of effort to make sure that we are creating a really safe environment. But from a cultural standpoint, being with people is part of our culture, and we want to continue to support that, but in a perhaps a a way that reflects the challenges we're going through right now.
I was recently in one of these large businesses or company or offices, excuse me, where these companies have spent millions and millions of dollars creating these cool collaborative workspaces. It's really the cornerstone of the culture that you guys have built to your credit. And you mentioned it briefly in your response earlier, but how do you see us moving forward and Bedrock moving forward? What are some of the initiatives that you'll take to promote collaborating together, which is vital to the success of your business in this post-virus economy that we're in right now?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, I read somewhere that there's like 30,000 published articles as to what the post-COVID workplace looks like, what the impacts are, all that kind of thing, which is way beyond what's ever been done before. Because I think people don't quite know yet. I mean, I think there's a lot of conflicting sort of you know. Environmental impacts that are taking place. I mean, as to the density probably won't be the same anymore. People have learned that you can work from home, but people have also learned they don't want to work from home all the time, and they want to get out of the house. They want to engage with each other, and so I think it's going to be incumbent. I know you've got a lot of smart people that are on the call today that are in the forefront of the real estate industry. I think people are going to be spending time understanding the net effect of all of those different dynamics. I mean, if you have less density, more people working at home, what's the overall impact on the commercial real estate? I mean, what do these mixed use projects look like? I mean, how do you nurture those kind of small, cool restaurants in the heart of these downtown districts? I don't know yet, and technology is going to clearly be a part of it. And I think you're gonna have to depend on the strong culture of communication in a way much beyond what has been in the past, because that connectivity is important. But I'd be lying if I told you we have all the answers as we sit here today.
But just tomorrow, I think May 7th, the governor has opened up construction. You guys will eventually resume the Hudson site, and obviously Monroe Block will be next on deck, among other projects that you're building from the ground up. How does COVID-19 affect these mixed-use spaces and the development and the vision that Dan and your team has had over the years? How is it impacting those designs?
Well, I mean, first off, it's great to get back to work. I mean, we're really excited about that. And Hudson's project is kind of the most visible one, but we're doing a lot on the Book Tower, and we're working on OCM and others, a lot of exciting plans around the Innovation Center with the University of Michigan. So first off, it's just exciting to get back to work because we had such incredible momentum here in Detroit and around the country. So I think it's important to remember that as we come back. As far as the design of these things, that's a couple different things. One is, will buildings be built differently? I mean, will there be different, MEP equipment? Will there be different air handling? Will you work with things like that? Probably. I mean, there'll probably be some of that for sure. Will public spaces and sort of the collaborative spaces be designed a little bit differently? Yeah, probably so. I mean, I think that will be the case. A lot more flexibility, I think, as we go forward. And as we look at projects like Hudson's, I mean, the whole idea there was to bring people together and to have a kind of a community meeting place. And so I think we need to be thoughtful now as to like what kind of flexibility can we build into that design. I think, we all expect that, years from now, the same things that excited people about an urban environment, about what was taking place in the city of Detroit. I mean, all of those are going to be there, and we're going to want to have that kind of capacity again. But there's clearly going to be a period of time, I think, between here and there, where we're going to need the flexibility built in so that we can accommodate people utilizing space in a variety of different ways.
I want to talk about the flexibility of people utilizing common areas, specifically elevators. Everyone on this call has been in an elevator. I think the Quicken and the Bedrock vision for a lot of these elevators is really technologically savvy. You've got the TVs in there. What's it look like for us utilizing elevators in a Bedrock property moving forward? I spoke to a prosecutor recently, and he said he's got to wear protective PPE in front of his face. He's got to face the wall in the elevator. I mean, my goodness, is that the future of what this looks like when we return?
I don't know. It may be some of those things for a period of time. I think from Bedrock standpoint, we've been in the forefront of a lot of technology from an elevator standpoint. So you can come up to an elevator and you can scan your ID and you don't have to touch anything. It knows what floor you want to go to. It points you to an elevator and you walk in it without touching anything. That same kind of technology could allow the computer, if you will, behind that system to determine how many people you want on each elevator. So even if there's 8 people going to the 5th floor, the elevator might tell the 7th and 8th person to go on a different elevator. So I think there's technology that's going to help some of this for sure. I think that we're going to have that. We're going to need that kind of capacity because density in the elevators is going to be different. There's no doubt about that. And if you have these big office buildings, you're going to need to still service the different levels within the building. So I think we will understand the medical requirements as we start. We'll understand sort of the technical things, but the societal ones of how people are comfortable, how many people are comfortable getting into a closed space like that. I think that's going to have to sort itself out over a little bit of time.
Matt, I got time for one more question. I've got on this call aspiring developers. They might have 1 or 2 office buildings in their portfolio. Maybe they've got 10,000 square feet. Maybe they've got 30. Do you have any words of advice to them, those listening in on the call, and what they can do as they prepare for a post-virus economy?
We're spending a lot of time from a Bedrock standpoint in what I'd call sort of an environmental assessment. If you start with the macro trends, what's taking place, and you're looking at that, and then you understand, well, what is that? How does that impact on an urban area versus more of a suburban area? How does that impact on different types of space utilization? I mean, the malls have been much more impacted upon than warehouse and distribution and so on. So I think you need to, look at it from a macro perspective and understand what's taking place around you. And then from a Bedrock standpoint, we're also building it up from the ground floor to say, okay, these restaurants and retail stores along Woodward are critically important to us, and we want to nurture them, and we want to have them be just as successful going forward as they have been. And so I think it's in that sort of distillation of the macro trends, and then looking at your own portfolio and understanding how you can partner with your tenants or with your business partners or so on is where the magic is going to be made here. And I think those that can kind of navigate that, understand the contextual things that are taking place and how they impact on their businesses and how they can position their businesses or properties in a thoughtful way, the people are going to win, and others are going to have challenges as we go through this period of rapid change.
Matt, I'm sorry we don't have enough time. I did want to talk to you about the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy. I know it's a very big passion of yours. We'll have to do that at another time. We would certainly appreciate your wisdom and insights. Wish you and your family continued health and safety, and appreciate you being on this morning. We'll be right back.
Derek, thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Larry Burns, President and CEO of the Children's Foundation. In these unique and challenging times of the ongoing coronavirus, our mission to improve the health and wellness of children and families has become even more important. To keep communities safe and healthy, we have established a COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund, allowing us to offer immediate support to community organizations who are now providing food, learning kits for homeschooling, virtual mental health services, and more. With your help, we can reach more children and more families. I invite you to consider making a gift today. It will directly impact some of the most vulnerable communities in need. And to learn more about the work supported by the COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund, or to donate, please visit www.yourchildrensfoundation.org. Thank you for your continued support. We are in this together. Onward.
Most people do not know that our next guest is a Formula One race car driver disguised as a world-renowned visionary of commercial real estate development all over the world. He's widely regarded as one of the more successful developers in our state. And someone once asked him what it's like to race people half his age. And he said, I quote, "I am in the hunt in every race. I may be older, but my extra miles go a long way on the track." And I know he utilizes that same mentality in business. He's a gentleman I've come to know and respect over the years. He's a visionary. He's acquired and developed billions of dollars of commercial real estate all over the country. and throughout his career, he's the chairman and chief executive officer of City Club Apartments. It's my honor to welcome Jonathan Holtzman to Impact. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning, everyone.
Jonathan, your company is over 100 years old. You've been through a Great Depression. You've been through world wars. You've been through recessions. You've been through 9/11, economic disasters of all kinds. How have you persevered over the years, and how are you facing COVID-19?
I think that the apartment industry, which I can focus in on, not other forms of real estate, but the apartment industry. As I listen to Matt and Dynamic, Dan Gilbert, everybody is home. So let's think about the word home, because an apartment is a necessity. You need a place to live. So we've got food, shelter, and clothing. So I think how we've persevered is always had a great home. And so as we think about the environment that we're currently in, Matt talks about the Gilbert companies, his people are at home. We think about all the students in colleges and their home. We think about parents and grandparents that we're going to sell their home and condo and move into elderly housing or move into an apartment. They're at home. Everybody's at home. And they're at home shopping, they're at home entertaining, they're at home eating, they're at home with their pets. So I think how I've persevered in each of these recessions and the period that we're in is to go back to focusing on their home and creating a great home. And then what is a home and what's the home of the future?
I love that. That's great advice. Focus on your home and your home of the future. What did you do as a company leader on March 13th, and how did you prepare internally for your organization with this pandemic? What was the first thing that you did, and how did you initially react to this?
I think the federal, state, city, all the organizations did something very important. They said that an apartment community is essential services. That was really good. And so we then focused in on our manager, our maintenance, our housekeeper. We focused in on all those people, and we didn't lay anybody off. In fact, we hired more because we needed to take care of their home. These were our customers living in our communities. And so we had to follow CDC guidelines, extra cleaning, protective gear, 6 feet apart. And we really focused in on how do we work with that? And then who in our buildings would get a virus, or who would, as an employee, would get a virus, and then we would follow those guidelines. So from day one, we've been focusing on, customer service, taking care of their home, servicing them, and that has proven to be successful for us.
You've developed a lot of mixed-use properties that are widely regarded as beautiful and visionary. You've got one right now in the Grand Circus Park. Tomorrow, you can actually start back on construction, which I'm sure you're excited about, and so is your team. Can you give us an idea or a snapshot on what's happening in the city of Detroit, how Detroit's responding to COVID-19, and what advice you have for other developers that are looking to build in the Central Business District, or in Detroit for that matter, or anywhere in the country, really?
It was an interesting comment that Matt made and you made about downtown Detroit's a ghost town, but it really isn't. It's just everybody's home. They're just not walking to work. They're working from their home. They're not walking to a restaurant. They're ordering food delivered to their home, and so, but they're there. So what's very exciting about Detroit is the phone hasn't stopped ringing for people interested in a home. The emails haven't stopped interested in a home. We've actually been renting apartments. The volume is a little bit less, no doubt, but people still need a home. And Detroit did a great job and continues to do a great job of a great place to live. So the mixed use idea, I think is the future. I've always believed in that because, you don't have to put on a coat in the wintertime. You walk downstairs to the market, the grocery store, the restaurant, the dog pet store, you have valet parking. You have everything in the community. You have a 24-hour business center conference room, 24-hour concierge, 24-hour swimming pool, 24-hour club room. You have social programming. Now, what's different is you're going to get in the elevator with one or two people versus packed. You're not going to be packed around people in the club room or the business center. We're going to follow CDC guidelines, 6 feet, 8 feet apart. If the requirement is wearing a mask, if people feel comfortable wearing a mask. So we're gonna try to follow guidelines that experts have set. And we're gonna work with our customers and our prospects the same way. So we think the mixed use, really helps the future. And then in terms of homes, we've been designing apartments with dens and offices, for 20 years. So, so now you're working from home. Is that more of the future? Yes. Are you shopping more from home? Is that the future? Yes. Are you making your package rooms with refrigerators larger? The answer is yes. So I think this pandemic has accelerated what was already a little bit of a trend about that your home is more dynamic.
And how has this accelerated your further development interests and plans and visions for other projects? Are you all in? I got a great question here from Andy Wakeland, excuse me. Are you all in on new projects? Are you pausing on some? Or are we just going to finish what you've started? I mean, where are you at in terms of new developments?
So look, you've got some experts on the phone here. I think the best time to ever develop is in a recession. Labor material is less expensive, interest rates are lower. And then, build in a recession and deliver coming in an improving economy. But developers, it's tough for us to perfectly market time. It takes a really long time to get things developed and built. So, so you either believe in a project or you don't. You can't quite market time it. Every once in a while you get lucky and your timing of coming online is great. Sometimes you're a little unlucky. You come online when there's supply, but it's still fundamentally you're in it for the long term. Are we all in? Yes. We've got 6 developments under development. Hope to start 2 this year, 2 next year, 2 the following year.
I think we've got a few that we're going to show.
Which is lenders, right? And investors. Everybody is on the sideline, right? But we think they won't stay on the sideline for many more months because this is still America. We love our capitalism. People want to invest money. People want to have returns. I think everybody's at a pause, but I don't think it's going to stop the great fundamentals.
What is the biggest mistake that you see other landlords making today with mixed-use developments?
Well, when you do your retail, the hotel industry does it right. They've lined up the restaurant, the coffee shop. That you don't open up a hotel without the restaurant, coffee shop, and the retail opening at the same time. The mistake that I made, and I think other developers make, is that we don't rent the commercial space at the beginning when we're under development. We tend to build the project, underwrite it in a pro forma, and then say vacant restaurant for lease. And then we count the broker to rent the space, later in the project. And that affects leasing. It affects rents of the apartments. So we've learned that from the day you start developing the real estate, you're hiring the broker and you're already negotiating with tenants, whether it's a market, a coffee shop, a restaurant, whatever it is. They become integral to your property early. And so when you open up, you have the restaurant and the retail.
Let's move to vendor third-party services and capital improvements during a pandemic. Is this the time that, and obviously you can't do it until tomorrow, But is this the time to go ahead and focus on capital expenditures to upgrade spaces, or do you pause on that? Do you cut back on vendor services? I mean, what does that look like for mixed-use space?
Yeah, again, I think the federal and the state and the city allowed us to do things that were essential services, right? If you had problems with health and safety in your capital, you could still do it, and we still did it, right? The things that were not considered essential, you had to wait until tomorrow. But we're still going to proceed with capital. We're competitors. If we make our property better than our competitors, that'll help us with leasing, resident satisfaction, et cetera. So we think it's incumbent that you compete. I think a lot of the lenders have allowed us to do deferral programs, principal and interest. Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae was brilliant. A lot of the other lenders went ahead. That really protected us as owners, that we could maintain our properties as we work with our renters. The renters that couldn't pay the rent, you worked out business deals with them because they want to pay the rent. They just got laid off. So you work with them. And then, as they get their job back, then, they can catch up on the rent, and we can catch up on the deferral of the principal and interest to our lenders. I'm very impressed in this recession that the lenders were our friends. And in previous recessions, the lenders didn't treat us so well.
What advice do you have for other developers that are on a small scale? Maybe they've got one or two mixed-use sites or projects upcoming. They're looking at this economy right now. Maybe there's a good opportunity for them to get the shovels in the ground. I know you mentioned earlier you're all in, but for somebody else that has a smaller portfolio and maybe doesn't have that leverage relationship with the lender at your level, what advice would you give them to help them weather the storm?
Look, I'm going to give them an optimistic story. I mean, some of the great geniuses. Look at Sam Zell. He started at University of Michigan buying one house, and he rented it. So to the small, medium, or large developers, you might have better deals on land with better terms and conditions. You might have better deals with architects and designers because they want to put their people to work to make out a deal. You're gonna have lenders sooner or later that'll be lending again, and contractors and subcontractors will want to go back to work. So, we're in the housing business. We're a necessity. City Detroit and the suburbs are great. The state of Michigan is great. I really think things are going to be fine, but it's going to take time. Is this a 6 month, 1 year, or 2 years before we're back to where we were? Maybe. I can't predict that one. All I know is that a great apartment building in a great location, taking care of its customer and pricing right business to be in.
I think we have a couple slides here that we're going to show from upcoming projects that are in development. I think one of them is the Grand Circus project here. I think we're going to get that up right now. Maybe you can walk us through what we're seeing here as a mixed use.
Yeah, so this is the one actually in Kansas City.
Okay.
It's on mass transit in a great part of Kansas City near downtown and the crossroads. So we're a great believer that you're on mass transit. So many people don't want a car and they can't afford a car. Car needs to go away. It has underground parking, something that we believe in. You can see the restaurant on the corner. And then it's got also a wine bar. And then we have a great lease with a great company called Dollar General, formed something called GTX. They're like a mini department store. It's a brilliant business model. And that's one of our tenants. And so this, we're probably a month away from the first move-ins. And we're probably, 30% pre-leased. But it's a combination of a historic building, new construction, small, medium, and large units and townhouses. And it's an example of one of our mixed use.
It's a beautiful site. Do we have the other one here from an aerial shot?
Yeah, so we put the swimming pool on the roof. Swimming pools are very social. Again, what Matt was talking about, what we're all talking about is we probably can't have density. People have to be 6 to 8 feet apart. So if you want to get a date with a girl on Saturday night, you'll have to talk a little bit louder.
Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Jonathan, that's all the time we have. It was an honor to have you on. Appreciate your insights and wisdom during this pandemic, and wish you and your family continued health and safety. Continue to build projects because they are first class. We're looking forward to seeing the one located here at Grand Circus. And again, wish you all the best and hope to see you on the racetrack soon. Jonathan Holtzman, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck and be optimistic.
We'll be right back.
As AT&T's #1 partner, MMS prides itself on delivering a world-class experience to our clients and our communities to keep them connected where they live, work, and play. During these challenging times, we are here to serve you. We have many options to keep you connected to your loved ones by offering non-contact transactions and curbside service. Also, because we care about our healthcare professionals, we are offering 3 months of free service to doctors and nurses. Visit mmsmobile.com/stores to find an open location near you and call ahead to set up a curbside appointment.
Welcome back for our expert panel. He's the president of the Farbman Group, overseeing more than 25 million square feet of space in an exceptional career that spanned more than 25 years. He's one of the great personalities in business today. He's admired by just about everybody that knows him. Most people do not know that he's an accomplished author and songwriter, and hopefully today he'll be singing an optimistic tune for us. Let's welcome to the show Andy Gutman.
Thanks for having me here, Derek.
Yep, he's the Director of Opportunities and Acquisitions. I love that title. With more than 16 million square feet and 22,000 multifamily apartment units throughout the country under management. They focus on brokerage, management, construction, and acquisitions. Let's welcome Jared Friedman of Friedman Real Estate. Good morning, Jared.
Good morning. Thanks for having me today.
And our last introduction, he's our Chief Financial Expert. For more than a decade, he's financed more than 90% of all the deals that you see in the Central Business District. His company and team originates more than $1 billion annually and services more than $4 billion in loans. He's also the incoming president of the United Jewish Foundation and chair of its emergency COVID-19 task force. He's a friend as well. Let's say hello and good afternoon now to Mr. Dennis Bernard. Dennis, I'll start with you. Let's talk about debt and equity, something you know a lot about as it relates to the Central Business District. Again, you've serviced more than 90% of deals in the CBD. How does COVID-19 soften deal development and stymie the recovery process here in the city of Detroit?
I'm not sure it does. First of all, thank you, Derek, for having me. And what a great panel. I want to say hello to, I do business with everybody on this panel. It's a great set of people you put together for today. I'm not sure it is really stymied development down there in the long term or even in the midterm, maybe in the short term. This is the first recession that we've had in my 35 years where our lenders, banks, life companies, Wall Street were in such good financial shape and had liquidity. And Jonathan pointed out that helped this time around, that the lenders are working with the developers. They understand this as a short term. Matt really pointed out very well, nobody's quite sure how we come out, when we come out, what it feels like when we come out. So when you put all that together, this may not be a very long-term pause in the capital markets. We're already seeing, candidly, a little to my surprise, we've started having we represent 28 lenders, national lenders. We've already, 2/3 of them have started quoting loans again this week. Now, of course, they're a little more conservative. The rates are very competitive. They're anywhere from 3.25% to 4.25%. But we're starting to see them stick their head out of their shut-in apartments or their homes, and they're starting to look. They're looking for a little more reserve. LTVs are down, but I've never seen, when we've gone through such stress in our economy, in our markets, and whatever, lenders so quickly willing to start to consider to lend again. Are they really out there aggressively doing? Not quite yet, but they're interested. They have a lot of money they need to put out. And by the way, this goes for debt and equity. Now, the last lender that most likely will come back, and this can have an effect, are going to be the banks. The banks have two things that have really kind of kept them preoccupied. That is, every bank got on board and did these SBA PPP loans. So they were inundated. They're still busy processing them, underwriting them, taking care of them, and they did all hands on deck kind of thing. So they just don't have the personnel. And the other thing, and again, Jonathan referred to this, a lot of the banks followed followed suit from the agencies, Freddie, Fannie, HUD, and said, we'll give you forbearance for 2, 3, 4 months. So when they've done that many forbearances, and in many cases they didn't need to do it, they need to work through those issues. So you have more permanent lenders, more off-book balance sheet lenders, debt funds, life companies that have these funds, Wall Street that are coming back before you're going to have the banks. But I'm not sure it's going to slow things down too much if you had good real estate.
What are you seeing in terms of the biggest challenges right now that's presented itself from the pandemic, and how do you advise your clients to overcome them?
You know, everybody's touched on them. Matt's touched on them. Jonathan's touched on them. I know Jared and Andy very well. They're going to touch construction, timing, construction cost, construction availability. Also, we're not sure as you develop mixed use and office, there's the yin and the yang. And Matt really pointed that out. You're going to see density, which was our office space was becoming more and more dense, piling more and more people in. You're going to have people who got accustomed to working at home or working at home part-time. But what does that mean? So that's stretching one way, less people in the office, but you're going to want more larger workspace again. I'm not sure how people are going to want to share office space, an office desk, and come in every day or two and wonder who was already, sneezing, coughing, touching their workspace, and the keyboard. So the challenge is going to be what you design, how you design. Is it for the short term, for the next year or two, as we recover from? Everybody talks about what's the new normal, and we can guess what the new normal is. But developers have to be really good at figuring out what the new long-term normal will be. You don't get to build a building for the next 2 years and then hope it adapts to the next 18 years. So those are going to be some of the challenges that we're going to face here in the CBD and the suburban, and then of course marrying it up with the capital structure.
Jared, let's bring you in and get your thoughts on what are the big challenges that you're facing right now with deal flow.
Yeah, challenges, I think number one priority on everybody's mind is safety. And I know everyone has really touched on that today in some way, shape, or fashion. And, Jonathan putting his safety helmet on there in the background is a key of that. But, safety is the most priority thing that people are really thinking about in today's environment. Because when people come back to work, they're going to be thinking about infectious diseases. They're going to be thinking about COVID. It's going to be at the top of everyone's mind. So one of the most challenging things we've been doing is figuring out how to make buildings safe for people. As Dennis alluded to, the trends over the last couple of years have been more density. People have been going towards open floor plans and 10 per thousand seating and open bench seating inside of a lot of these office buildings. And candidly, we don't think that that's what the world is going to look like here in the short term, and even in the medium term for that matter. So we're thinking a lot about how to make that product safe. We ordered tons of PPE across all of our buildings for our employees and staff. We have hand sanitizer spread out across all the buildings. We've increased the amount of cleaning across our portfolio. So where you might have a building cleaned 1 to 2 times a day, it's potentially being cleaned 2 to 4 times a day. We're putting max capacity on elevator systems as well. No more than 2 people in an elevator at any given time.
How do you
and we're also really helping tenants redesign space and what that looks like. As people, as companies bring employees back to work, we're helping them spread people out, change the way they use conferences. We'll continue to have a lot of common area facilities such as gyms, cafeterias, common areas, so on and so forth, shut down in the medium term until we can really figure out, a vaccine or something that alleviates a lot of the spread of this virus. But we are definitely thinking about safety, and that's the biggest challenge on everybody's mind. And I think adapting these office buildings, which have really been meant to accommodate a lot of dense users, is probably going to be the biggest challenge in the short and medium term as companies return back to work to increase that collaboration.
So let's talk about that, Jared, just as a follow-up. Who covers the costs and how do you enforce two people in an elevator? And then in terms of providing PPE for your staff and for your team and the cleaning crew, what about your tenants? Who covers those costs? How do you enforce that in a Friedman building?
Yeah, so enforcing is a tough subject. I think it's really cooperation by tenants is where we're really going to go. At the end of the day, tenants lease space, they have the rights to that space, and they can do their business activities within that space without disruption from the landlord. So we're asking for cooperation from tenants, and so far all of our tenants have been very cooperative in understanding what we're going to do to help keep those environments safe. Our office buildings actually have been open because a lot of the businesses that in our office buildings are essential services. So we've been running the office buildings, even though they've been less dense over the past couple of months, they have been open and operational. And we've seen a lot of cooperation from tenants. We're building signage everywhere when you walk in the door. We've been communicating with our tenants on a constant basis. So I think a lot of tenants will be very understanding and helping, make sure we have a safe environment for everyone. In terms of covering the cost, it's something that the industry is really going to have to, bear and figure out. Depends what structure your lease is, right? If you have a net lease and expenses get passed onto the building, that's something that will ultimately flow through to the tenants. Vice versa, gross leases, the landlord's going to eat a lot of that cost. But I think it's something that we have to do and really help with a lot of that. I know landlords, especially us, are being very proactive in ordering this equipment and brunting a lot of that cost, which we think is okay and we're ready to do. I think it's number one. Our number one goal is safety in a lot of these buildings. So it's something we're okay in doing for now, and we'll adapt in the future.
Andy, I'd like to ask you a similar question about the biggest challenge you see to reopening. You've got projects and buildings all over the country, in North America as well. So what are you focused on as the president of Farbman Group?
Yeah, so in reopening the buildings, we're somewhat similar to what Jared said. A lot of our buildings have been open to an extent, much less dense, but a lot of essential workers in our buildings. So we've been actively open in a lot of ways. But when we talk about the lifting of stay-at-home or shelter-in-place orders throughout the Midwest, it's going to be a number of things. It's going to be gradual. You're going to see that companies come back in a slow pace throughout 2020. I don't think it's, the stay-at-home order is lifted, everybody will be back tomorrow. I think you're talking about a long-term staging. I also think that when it comes down to it, it's going to be a little bit messy. It's going to be trial and error for what works in bringing people back. We've gone out and we're also focused heavily on safety of our people. We're going to the extent of putting in directional arrows and creating traffic flow so that people don't bump into each other by nature. We're asking for partnership in that from our tenants, our vendors, and participation in these programs. But it's about putting in proper signage, putting in different ways to keep people safe. We went out and found some different models of door handles that you can open with your elbows for restrooms and other things, so that you use your arm and it's safer and cleaner. Not that in any environment anyone wanted to touch the restroom doors on their way in or out, but in this economy, you really want to go that extra mile. So we're actually having manufactured a series of these injection mold door handles to create safety. But I think in total, we're asking our clients to work with us. When we ask them, to wear masks in the building, we focus on the difference between the common areas in their suites. We can't tell them you can't, you have to wear a mask in your suite, but we can tell them in the common areas you have to do that. And it is cooperation. It's about asking and then trying to get them to understand the reason. But in general, I really think as we go through it, Jared talked about cleaning costs. We kind of look at it different ways. The landlord is responsible for the common areas and responsible to clean through the specifications in the lease for the tenant space. In a triple net deal, it's easy to alter, the work that's being done in the spaces as well as the common areas. In gross lease deals, it's tougher to do because who bears that difference? So we've been working in partnership with clients and saying, we're happy to up the standards. We need to do that. We're doing that as a matter of course in the common areas, and but in the spaces, it's a discussion to talk about who bears the cost, and that's something that continues to go on.
Andy, in terms of discussions that continue to go on and in the spirit of the partnership that you have with your tenants, on the call right now are other tenants that, they might have 5,000 square feet, they might have 10,000 square feet or less. There's a lot of unknowns with what's happening from the state and the federal level. What advice do you have for them in terms of what they can do to, put themselves in position to be safe for when they open back up?
Well, to be safe, there's a lot of things they can do. There's good CDC guidelines. I would say communicating with your landlord in terms of expectations of the building and what the landlord's doing, and the landlord communicating with them. I think if I'm talking to tenants in general about their health, and we've been reaching out to our entire portfolio of tenants. Matt spoke about it earlier, but it's really communication. It's really partnership with everybody. We talk to our tenants and say, how's your business doing, and can we help you grow business? It's interesting. We've been sending out marketing flyers and other things that help market the work of our tenants, so that we can help them grow business at a time they may not be physically open. And through that, we found some great opportunities for us. We all need PPE right now. Well, we found one of our tenants who came and asked us for a rent reduction, just started manufacturing masks and other products in their industrial facility down the road. We were able to market that to other tenants, growing their revenue, giving them a chance to pay rent again. So whether it's opening the space, whether it's we need free rent, whatever the issue is from landlords, whether it's you need assistance from your lenders, it's all about communicating upfront, paying what you can, working together through this issue. And I think we're all going to grow closer as an industry. Our tenant relationships will be better. Our lender relationships will be better. Our landlord relationships will be better, because we're focused on collectively surviving this. And none of us caused this to happen, which is very different than the last recession. This is something none of us are responsible for. But the only way we get out of this whole, or as whole as we can, is cooperation and partnership and communication.
Dennis, let's go to you in terms of partnership that you have with your clients. I would like to ask, what advice do you have today for someone that is an investor or a buyer in a post-virus economy? What's the best advice you have for them?
Well, for the investors, it's to drink heavily. And for the for buyers is the patience. All right. For investors, our industry, we participate in an industry survey that's being done every weekend. Have real time who's quoting, who's paying the mortgages, and so forth. And overall, when you take out hotels and certain type of retail, over 95% of the mortgages are continuing to being paid right now. So if you're an investor, a lot of the borrowers are just holding on to their return on the cash flow. Once things start to even out, they're going to start to have distributions again. So there isn't as much pain as everybody thought. But again, it remains to be seen how long this lasts. When it comes to buyers and investors for buyers, and both Jared and Andy can talk about this also, having acquired a lot of properties, we're going to see an adjustment in cap rates. We just don't know what it is. Is it a big adjustment like we saw in the last downturn, or because this might be shorter and the fact that our properties haven't been hurt as much, will it be less? Even though loan to values are going to go down in the debt markets for the foreseeable future, interest rates are still remaining low. So I think for buyers, you got to wait a little longer to see what becomes available from lenders if you're looking for opportunities. We get calls every day. We have a $4.5 billion servicing portfolio. What do you have to sell? What properties are in foreclosure? If you want to buy a Days Inn on some highway up north, I got plenty of those. But outside of true good investment real estate, it hasn't happened yet. So keep your powder dry, get your equity in line. You're going to need a little more equity than in the past. And then I think you will see opportunities, because what we are seeing is, as like in any expansion, there were people who got into commercial real estate that really shouldn't have been. There were owners, developers, buyers, and they're not prepared to weather. They don't necessarily have the capability. And that's where we're going to see the shakeout, that this is enough, or they're older, they've had enough, they don't want to fight through. And that's where the opportunities are be. They're going to want to move to something else. And I think those are definitely coming.
Jared, speaking of opportunities, you're the director of opportunities at Friedman. You guys are hiring aggressively, to quote you directly, right now during the crisis. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so we are hiring aggressively, especially on the brokerage side, whereas I think you'll see us do the most hiring over the short term. This is one of the best opportunities for people to get into the brokerage business because of a lot of change in the industry. As Dennis alluded to, this recession might not have the same impact as the last one, but there'll definitely be a lot of change. And for the brokerage business, that absolutely means that there's opportunity. There's opportunities to buy real estate. There's opportunities to sell, lease, sublease space, all the above. So we're going to see a lot of opportunities, which is why we're hiring a lot on the brokerage side to help facilitate transactions for a lot of these owners who may not be expertise, who've gotten in the real estate space over the past couple of years, as Dennis alluded to, or even the most seasoned veterans, trusting our team of 65 plus brokers across the country to really help and advise them on what the real estate market, looks like going forward. I think, as Dennis alluded to, the real estate market is going to change a lot, going forward, and the opportunities are going to be very different going forward than they were in the past. We were coming out of one of the best and most robust real estate markets we've probably seen, since 2007, right? And it was a healthy real estate market. Loan to leverage were not that high. You saw a lot of demand. People had a ton of equity and a ton of cash sitting on the sidelines. So you really didn't have those major type of financial issues which happened in the past. I think, a lot of people are expecting these massive amounts of defaults like you saw in 2008 and these massive amounts of buying opportunities. We're a little skeptical on that. And the reason is, as John alluded to it earlier, lenders are really the friends of borrowers during this crisis, which they historically haven't been. And so we think that that is going to keep afloat a lot of owners and landlords who maybe historically would have given back properties. So that's going to enable them to really, weather this recession, get through it. And when there's not a lot of distressed properties, pricing won't come down as much. I think pricing will come down, though, in the short to medium term, just given the fact that there will be lower loan to leverage. There's not going to be as many lenders in the market. A lot of these syndicators and equity groups that were raising cheap costs of capital probably will disappear. So that ultimately will have, as Dennis is shaking his head, they're all gone, right? And those are really the people who were driving up prices over the last 24 months, especially on the multifamily side. We saw historically low cap rates for that type of product because it was a lot of syndicated, let's lever up as much as possible. So, really, we think that we are getting ready for, being aggressive on the opportunity side. I think it's going to take a while, really, to have some patience. And as a landlord and as an owner, it's really the time to talk to your real estate advisor to figure out what your game plan is in the medium term. There's going to be changes in offices. There's going to be changes in the way people move throughout and live in different homes. Even though Jonathan alluded, people will live in homes. Are they going to live in high rises? Are they going to live in garden suburban products? In the office side, are they going to be in downtown urban areas, or do they want to be in single-story buildings with no elevators? So I think there's a lot of questions you have to think about as a landlord, and we're evaluating and constantly helping clients do that as we're getting real-time feedback from tenants in the market about what they're trying to, attempt to do over the short and medium term.
Great. I got just a couple more minutes here. Andy, I'd like to ask you, how are you sourcing opportunities during the pandemic as the leader of Farbman?
Yeah, Farbman has been, we were founded on, the nice thing about being from Detroit is we used to be, and hopefully it won't be again, but we used to be ground zero for distress. So Farbman was founded as a company that really would help clients find their way out of distress and find opportunities. And so the phones have already started ringing for us. It's been kind of chaotic with all the opportunities that we are seeing in the process and seeing come forward. So, we're talking to our clients, we're talking to lenders, we're talking to servicers. We're really making sure we're in front of people and trying to make sure they understand their current real estate and understand what they've got. We put in effect about a year ago a tune-up program for clients that was, mildly used during the upcycle, because people were like, it's easy to make money in real estate in good times. Our phone is really ringing off the hook with people trying to understand their portfolios now and get their arms around that, and taking us up on the idea of a free review of, whatever their real estate is. And now more than ever, they need to talk to people about what their future should look like with real estate. So we're seeing a lot of opportunities to help clients find new relationships. Farbman's always been about working together with our clients and working towards their best interest. So those, things come when you're optimistic and you're helpful to those around you. And so really, we're not doing a lot of outward advertising or anything like that during this time, but really focused on how can we help those in our community.
That's great advice. Dennis, closing thoughts?
I think everybody, Matt, and Jonathan, Andy, and Jared have all hit on it. Disruption brings opportunity. So we have to take a hard look. Some of the projects and mixed-use projects that were going to be developed in the city, whether they were small or large, really didn't need to be developed, but everybody was running down. And I think in a perverse kind of way, those are not going to happen. So it's going to keep our markets a little healthier. But if you have a good project that needs to be developed, then, and it makes sense, it is going to be, it is. And we kind of have an opportunity. In some of the other cities, Jonathan mentioned Kansas City, it's on the public transportation line. We finance all around the country. We're starting to see some pushback from in other cities of use of public transportation. So I think Detroit and the CBD of Detroit has opportunities, because unlike other cities, we still are an automotive town. We have a lot of parking. There's going to be a lot of opportunity. I know Farbman, Friedman have properties and so forth that have the parking available in the city. Things like that are going to create some life for us. So as we all said, these are interesting times. We don't know how long they're going to last. The world didn't end like it did in the Great Recession. There's money out there. A lot of the pretenders, whether they were lenders, there's only going to be half the lenders coming out of this, half the developers, half the owners, but that creates the opportunity. Got to stay on your toes.
Got to stay on your toes. And, with that, we're going to have to close it up here. Gentlemen, I thank you so very much for your time. Wishing you and your families continued health and safety during the crisis. Again, we're sensitive to all the lives that have been lost during COVID-19 and impacted. And so if you're in a position to, we'd be honored for you to consider making a monetary contribution to the Children's Foundation COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund. If you found this program helpful, and certainly the insights from our special guests help us make a difference while making an impact. The logo and the link to do so is, it'll be right on the screen or on our landing page. Join us next week. Bring a friend, bring a colleague as we focus on how the COVID-19 has impacted the industrial sector. We certainly have a fantastic panel wrapped up there. You can catch this Impact program and all the others on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe today, tell friends, and in the interim, always want to wish you all to stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you soon on Impact.
You created it. You believe in it. A brand dedicated to excellence and destined for growth. It's a dream that propels you, that colors every step you take, that looms large and steers you towards success. Your vision sparks passion, exudes luxury. Now is the moment to draw them in, to become what they covet, to navigate to that next level, to rise above and reach beyond, to set a course that exceeds even your own expectations, to leave the competition in your wake. Now is your moment to be the brand everyone believes in.